This is going to be my full Star Wars Episode 7 The Force Awakens review. This is going to be a full spoiler review. Overall, I really love this movie. Star Wars is back, but after the nostalgia kind of wore off, I do have a few issues with it. So again, warning, this is going to contain full spoilers of what happened during the movie. So if you don't want to see what happened, hadn't seen the movie yet, please go ahead and click far away. First off, overall, I really love the movie. I think it pretty much lived up to the hype in most areas. I think it felt like Star Wars. It felt a lot more realistic than we're used to with the prequels, although I'm not a prequel hater. I had mentioned in a previous video that this would probably mirror Episode 4, A New Hope, and it did that, although it did that a little too much in some cases, I think. But with this film, you know, you really love the characters right off the bat. I really loved Rey. I really loved Kylo Ren as the villain, which kind of surprised me. I didn't think I would like him as much as I did. I really love Finn. I really love Poe. He was a cool-ass mobster-style, gangsta-ass, flyboy badass. The visuals are outstanding. The action was great, balanced with good comedy that wasn't overdone. It was in the right places. The classic Star Wars one-liners. I really loved all that as a movie as a whole, as a production. The acting, the music was great. I mean, John Williams is a genius. So let's quickly go through the movie, talk about basically what happened throughout the film. I think it pretty closely matches what I said in a previous video about the plot and how I think it would pretty much go down. And then we'll go through the light side, the things I loved about it, and also the dark side, the things I didn't like about it. Because again, as pumped as I was and still am that Star Wars is back, after the euphoria kind of wore off, I did have some issues as I started thinking through things. First of all, we had a similar story to Episode 4, where we had somebody looking for some droids with some kind of secret plans or map in this case. So we had Kylo Ren going after Luke Skywalker. Apparently the First Order's been looking for him as he's been missing. And BB-8 had the map that they needed to find Luke within him, and Poe Dameron tells him to go away as the First Order attacks the little village where they were at in the opening of the movie on Jakku. Poe gets captured and taken to the Star Destroyer above Jakku, and Finn ended up being a stormtrooper who was apparently on garbage duty and got promoted to Captain Phasma's crew and went down to the planet with Kylo Ren looking for this droid. He didn't like how shit was going down. Finn was scared, and Ren actually sensed that for a second when he was kind of looking around going, what the hell am I doing here? I got to get the fuck out of here. We see Rey, who's on this planet and apparently been placed here since she was young, and she's marking off the days as she's waiting for her parents to return. She is a scavenger. She's going to scavenge different parts off these old Star Destroyers and turning them in for basically food. Finn helps Poe escape on the Star Destroyer. They escape together in a TIE fighter, and they end up crashing on Jakku as they get shot down. They get separated. Finn comes across the village that Rey's in, and of course Rey gets involved when the Empire comes looking for them and the droids. They figured out where they went. They end up escaping Jakku because apparently she had fixed up the Millennium Falcon that somehow got there, and somehow she knew how to fly this thing. Basically outran two TIE fighters while Finn shot them down. They get out into space. They get captured by Han Solo, who is apparently went back to smuggling, and he has this smuggling vessel and tractor beamed the Millennium Falcon up into its hull, and that's how Han gets involved. They basically tell the story about how they got BB-8 and he's got to get back to the Resistance. He knows of the Resistance, but apparently he's been MIA as well for the last, we don't know really how many years, because apparently him and Leia have kind of been separated. And they immediately let you know that it was because Kylo Ren was their son. Kylo Ren's actual name is Ben Solo. To get them back to the Resistance in their base, Han takes them to Maz Kanata in her little castle thingy. She seems to know the Force, although she says she's not a Jedi, and she happens to be carrying around Luke's old lightsaber, which also belonged to Anakin, in a box downstairs in the basement. Rey is kind of called down there. She touches it and she has this Force vision, and that was pretty much everything we saw in the original teasers, where we saw Luke with his hand on R2-D2, where we saw the Knights of Ren. She had this experience and it scared the shit out of her. She tries to run to get the hell out of there. She never wants to touch it again. She's not sure what the hell's going on. And of course, there were some First Order spies within this castle or cantina style place that was in Maz Kanata's. The First Order comes and attacks this castle, and when Kylo hears that the droid is with a girl, he obviously knows something about this girl. He's heard about her before. Although Rey's parentage was not really revealed to us, only 2 more years to wait for that. During this battle, Finn gets the lightsaber of Luke's and starts using it, and I'm not sure how he knew to use it or even how to turn it on, because he is apparently not Force sensitive at all, like we all kind of thought he would be, being the one he's holding the lightsaber in the fucking movie poster. They have this battle where the Resistance shows up with their X-Wings, and during this time Rey is running out through the woods trying to get the hell out of there with BB-8, and Kylo Ren finds her and they meet up in the woods. He actually says something to the effect of, the girl I've heard so much about, and uses the Force and realizes that she's seen the map, so there's no need to go after the droid anymore, so they take her hostage, and he knocks her out with the Force. So we get back to the Resistance base, and General Leia is there, no longer Princess Leia, and her and Han has some dialogue back and forth about their son, who is apparently trained by Luke as a Jedi when he was very young, but something went wrong. He turned to the dark side to a degree, and he actually took off and that kind of destroyed Luke apparently, and he's kind of went into hiding Obi-Wan style ever since. Then we have a shot of the big new Death Star, which is called Starkiller Base. It's basically an entire planet or moon that sucks radiation up from a star nearby, and once it's charged up, it can actually destroy an entire star system. So instead of going with a different type of weapon, they went with Death Star 3.0. So while Rey's being held hostage, they decided to go attack this Starkiller base, and she discovers she has force powers. I think she's probably knew this all along, but really didn't know what it meant or how to use it or what to do about it. But she somehow figures out to do a Jedi mind trick on the stormtrooper in the room while she's being held captive in the same chair or table, whatever you want to call it, that Poe Dameron was in earlier, being interrogated. Kylo Ren comes in and tries to interrogate her and realizes she's strong in the Force. She resists him, and he doesn't get any information out of her. And then all of a sudden, she just kind of knows how to do a Jedi mind trick, and she escapes by having the stormtrooper unlock her and let her go and actually leave his blaster. During this battle, they go in to destroy this, Death Star 3.0, and Han and Chewie go in to plant some explosive devices within the core of it because it did have another thermal exhaust port. They didn't call it that, but that's exactly what it was. They go in, and he confronts Kylo Ren and calls him Ben Solo. Goes up to him and says, "Come home with us." And he actually has a good touching moment with Kylo Ren there, and I think Kylo was really thinking about it. He's really conflicted, and that's kind of what I dig about him as a character. He's not just this pure evil, stone cold bad guy. He's still conflicted and not afraid to show that emotion, and he did, and he ended up turning and killing Han Solo. Very sad moment, but I kind of saw this coming. I don't think this is something we really were surprised by, and actually I expected Chewie to go with him. I thought Chewie going after Kylo after he killed Han, because he did shoot Kylo and he actually got shot. And that's another thing I really liked about this movie, is people actually got shot. Rey and Finn and them escape off into the woods, and then Finn tries to fight Kylo with the lightsaber again that was Luke's. He apparently knows how to use it to a degree, although he's never had any training at all. But he ends up getting knocked out and damn near killed by Kylo. And then Rey picks up the lightsaber as Kylo tries to out of the snow. And of course she pulls it to her and fights Kylo and ends up whipping his ass. And that was kind of shocking because she's never been trained with the lightsaber. And there was actually cool scenes though. They actually nicked each other with lightsabers. Usually we don't see anybody actually get hurt in these movies. And she ended up whooping his ass, and he's got this big scar now, kind of akin to Anakin, on his face that I'm sure we'll see again in episodes 8 and 9. So she got real powerful real fucking quick. We do see Leia have a little feeling when Han dies, so we know she's still strong in the Force, although she's not a Jedi, and she went the general route as opposed to Jedi training, but she does feel when Han dies. And then all of a sudden R2-D2 wakes up, who had been sitting in a corner under some kind of sheet in low power mode because Luke's been missing. He's just been depressed, I suppose. And he just kind of wakes up, comes out of low power mode, and says, "Wait a minute, I got the rest of the map right here." So R2 and BB-8 join their two pieces of their map together to form the entire map. X marks the spot. Rey, at the end of this, leaves Finn there on the base. He's been knocked out. He's still unconscious. She takes off with Chewie and R2 apparently and BB-8 and just hugs Leia and takes off to find Luke. She ends up going to this planet, and Han had said earlier in the movie that he was going to find the original Jedi Temple, and they go off to find Luke. And she finds him on this planet and walks up these old stone stairs, sees Luke there in his Jedi robes looking out over the water, and he turns around and she offers the lightsaber to him, and he doesn't say a fucking word. Roll credits. So that's basically how it went down. I'm going to go see it again probably just to get more stuff out of it. I'm sure just being in the moment there, I missed a whole lot. So let's talk about the light side first, the things I really loved about it, and then we're going to go to the dark side and talk about the things I really didn't care for. So as I said in the beginning, I love the characters. They're fucking great. They did an outstanding job. Daisy Ridley is really badass. She's going to be a great character. You love her immediately. You're immediately invested in these characters, Finn and Poe and Rey. And I really love Kylo Ren as the new kind of villain in the movie because he's not pure evil guy. He's still conflicted. I actually thought before I saw the movie that I would not like the scenes with him without his helmet, but I actually liked it. It showed that he was still young, human, conflicted about the dark side and his mission and the truth, and it really shows this kind of character depth to him. So I really like him as the bad guy. I didn't expect to like him that much, but I really, really do. The movie feels real. It feels authentic. It feels like something that would happen if you saw this universe as far as people actually getting shot and the visuals and the dogfights over water and over land. I mean, it really felt real, and it felt very much like a Star Wars film. I think the acting was great. I like the overall balance of the comedy versus the action. It was well done. I like the one-liners. There were some nods to episode 4 and New Hope, or the original trilogy for that matter. And I thought that I would want to see more lightsaber type action, but you know what? They went back to a more simplified lightsaber fight because Rey wasn't trained and Ren really doesn't know what he's doing quite yet apparently. And I really thought it was kind of cool to go back to a very simple form of lightsaber fighting where they just have one hand, maybe two, but very simple strikes, a couple spin moves, but nothing too fancy where they're dancing off trees and doing flips and shit like that. So I actually kind of dug that. It went back to basics, went back to the fundamentals of Star Wars, and that's what I really loved about this film. Now, there's a lot more I loved about it. I just wanted to do kind of an overview there, but let's get into the dark side, some things I really didn't dig about it once I started thinking about it, again, once the nostalgia kind of wore off. So first thing I don't like about the movie is apparently anybody that picks up a lightsaber automatically knows how to use it. As we know as Star Wars fans, that a lightsaber is not just about swinging a sword that has a plasma blade on the end of it. You actually have to use the Force to do that. Now, sure, I can see kind of Finn being an ex-stormtrooper that learned how to fight a little bit, probably picking a weapon up and knowing how to swing it around pretty decent, but as far as a lightsaber fight, I don't get the fact that Finn, and Rey for that matter, just picked up the lightsaber the first time. They looked like they had used one plenty of times before. As much as I love Rey, I don't understand how she can just learn to use a Jedi mind trick as soon as she discovers she has Force power. She has these Force visions, and then when she's captured on the Death Star 3.0, apparently she has the wherewithal to know how to use a Jedi mind trick and escape. She just had been using the Force for literally 5 minutes and she already knows how to do a Jedi mind trick. And then going into that as well, when she fights Ren near the end, she's just too damn good, but she's never been trained like at all. At that point, she had been using the Force for about 30 minutes as she tried to escape, and then picks up the lightsaber and acts like she's been using it for 10 years. And another thing here, although I knew it would probably parallel Episode 4 New Hope, was that it paralleled it a little too much. This was essentially the same story to me. Although it was done really, really well, I think it was a little too close for comfort as far as the same storyline. Basically, you had droids carrying something of importance, in this case BB-8 carrying the map apparently to get to Luke, whereas in Episode 4 you had the droids carrying the Death Star plans, you had Death Star 3.0 as I keep referring to it as, you even had the trench run and the thermal exhaust ports. Now technically it wasn't a thermal exhaust port this time, but basically that's what it was. It was just something with a cap over it. They had to blow the cap off and then fly in, blow some shit up to destroy the whole planet. Another thing I think, as far as the lightsaber fight between Ren and Rey at the end was that Ren should have died. He got his ass whipped and not necessarily died by her, but when the planet exploded and the big rift formed in between them after she had knocked him on his ass, she took off in the Millennium Falcon and was immediately whisked off the planet and escaped right before it exploded. But it didn't really give you that sense that he had time to get back and escape that planet, including Captain Phasma and all the other characters that were still on this planet. Another thing I'd like to add is I noticed is when he went out to fight Kylo and Finn in the woods, he didn't have his mask because he had dropped it when he was talking to Han Solo before he killed him. So he had left this mask on this bridge in this big central area that had to be destroyed that Han and Chewie had planted the explosives in. He walked out, he fought them, and then of course the place got destroyed. So my question is going to be, is that going to be a plot hole where in Episode 8 he has this mask again when we know good and damn well it got destroyed within the main base or when the planet exploded itself? So unless he has a backup mask that looks exactly the same, either A, they got to explain that, B, he had to have some backups that look just alike, or he's going to have a different mask, or C, it's going to be a plot hole and they're not going to explain how he got it back. Another thing for me was the whole Snoke thing. I've been saying for months now I thought this was Darth Plagueis. He did look to be like a modified Mun character, or Mun again as some people call it, because I believe they did modify his appearance in the Tarkin novel as far as how Muns look. So this could still be Plagueis, it may not be Plagueis, it may be a completely different character. They were calling him Snoke, but at the same time he said at the end, bring me Kylo Ren, it's time to complete his training, giving you the sense that he hadn't been telling him everything or telling him the entire story. And again, not that I expected him to answer every single question in his first movie, introducing new characters and setting it up for the next two, but at the same time, you'd like to know a little something about how Ren fits in with the Snoke character, who I still at this point think is Plagueis because there's no reason not to. I mean, this was just a giant hologram. You never saw him in person. So I believe he is 7 feet tall according to the sources that I talked about before, but there was really just no answer as to really who he was and where he came from. One of the biggest problems I had was Luke. He wasn't in the film but literally 30 fucking seconds. Now I didn't expect him to be all through the movie. I completely understood that and said in previous videos I think he'd probably show up near the end. But not to even have a single line of dialogue like, hey Rey, I was expecting you, or hey, fuck off, leave me alone, something. Not a single line of dialogue, just a 20-30 second clip of him looking out over the ocean and turning around and seeing Rey there reaching out with his lightsaber. So we literally waited 30 damn years for Luke Skywalker to appear back on the big screen, and we get him for 30 seconds. And also, to go back to Snoke for a second, it was just the fact that, Andy Serkis being one of the best motion capture actors in the world, if not the best, in my opinion, he gets literally a minute and a half of screen time, and it's not even in person. I mean, they didn't have to necessarily give us the actual answer about who Snoke actually is and where he's been and where he came from, whether he's Plagueis or not, but you just saw him in a hologram, and a 25-foot hologram at that, which was kind of cool in itself, but I would like to have at least seen him in person, perhaps at the end after they escaped or something, where Kylo meets up with him in person, wherever this secret destination is he's,